Hello everyone, welcome to another session of the Mastering Apsis webinar series. Today we're going to talk about manage your subscriptions. My name is Daniel, I'm the head of product marketing at Apsis, and with me I have Opri to help me with this session.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see all of you in here. My name is Opri, and as Daniel said, I'm the head of sales and operations here for the Apsis in the FSC group. We are going to do a short 30-minute session going through the slides, but we will have a 10 minutes of Q&A afterwards. So if you need to go at the 30-minute mark, we will not be offended, just jump out. But if you have some questions that you want to ask, we will cover them after the 30 minutes of going through the presentation today.
Great, so let's get started. First of all, I'll just want to push once more for the webinar series. We have 5 different sessions. They are free coming up after this one before Christmas. So if you haven't already signed up for those, go ahead and make sure to sign up for those as well. And if you want to revisit or rewatch or didn't join the best practice profile management webinar that we did 3 weeks ago, you find it on our website as well. So today we're gonna go into the subscriptions and how you manage it. The key takeaways that you're gonna get from this is regarding mapping, manage, and mastering your subscriptions. Basically, it's about understanding what subscriptions are, how you define them, how you structure them and organize them, and maintain your communication in a good way, and how you optimize to get the most out of it and the most value and outcomes from it. So that is what you get from this session, focusing on subscriptions. We will be covering 5 different things today, mainly best practice approaches to structuring subscriptions and when to use them. Consent handling, how does that relate to subscriptions? Subscriptions and the relation to segment. Opt-ins and opt-out, what does that mean in relation to subscriptions? And how do you grow your subscription? How do you make sure that you get more profiles too? Before digging deep, we will just do a quick recap of what we talked about last time about the profiles, because profiles is a central thing and concept when talking about subscriptions as well. A profile is a person or an interaction from a person that we don't know exactly who that person is yet. In Apsis, we define it in 2 different things, 2 different type of profiles. Known profiles, which are individuals where we have an actual identifier of that profile. It could be an email, it could be a telephone number, or something that identifies that we know that this customer or this profile is that kind of person. The other part is unknown profile. So if we have captured a lead or captured a visitor on a website or something through a cookie or something else that we don't know, we cannot identify that one is unique, then we call it an unknown profile, which we grow continuously until it becomes a known profile, it converts to a known profile. So keep this in mind when going through this. So what is a subscription? A subscription in Apsis is a container of multiple profiles. It's a specific intent to communicate specific information within a defined topic towards those profiles that is included in that subscription. So it's both a container and an intent with the defined topic. The consent itself is related to the profile's approval to receive that information that you're to send them in a specific channel. So this relates through the main part here is the subscription. You can have multiple subscriptions in different folders and structure them however you like. But to those subscriptions, all profiles give their consent to receive the information from that specific subscription in a specific channel. So that means I can give a consent to receive information in emails for a specific marketing campaigns or marketing information or whatever that is. That is how we structure it in general. This means that you can do this in different ways. You can have, on the left-hand side here, you have, for example, a folder with external communication. You have a wide kind of subscription with newsletters and webinar invitations to which the profile consents to. You can also split the subscriptions in 2. So you have 2 different subscriptions to which each of those subscriptions, the profile need to give their consent for that specific channel. So in both these cases, these profiles have given the consent to receive email information in these 2 subscriptions. This means that it doesn't to this profile you cannot send SMS, for example, within those subscriptions. But there's different types of consents as well, right? What we're talking about now is explicit consent. There's also something we call implicit consent. So an implicit consent is when your customers have by the agreement or signing up to your subscription or buying your products have given the approval for you to receive any kind of information or communication that is relevant to the use of that service or that product. You can, of course, manage that as well in Apsis by just doing the same kind of thing. But with this doesn't mean that the consent itself needs to be approved and needs to be given from the customer. They've done that already when they've signed up to the service. So consent itself, what is the consent? So there's different statuses of a consent. You can, of course, opt into a subscription. That is, you give the consent to do it. Then you have an active opt-in or active consent towards that subscription. When a profile doesn't want communication anymore, they can opt out. So they unsubscribe to that subscription for that consent through that channel. They can still be subscribing to that subscription from another channel, but within that channel, it is non-active, basically. So that's the status of that. But we have a number of other different type of statuses as well. Opri, do you want to elaborate a little bit on what these other types of statuses means?
Yeah, so I think you covered an opt-in. I'm sorry, my internet just blacked out for like a couple of minutes. But we have the opt-out. So when someone unsubscribes or withdraw their consent, and then we have the pending opt-in. So if you are using, as an example, double opt-in, when you are confirming subscription, before the profile has click the button that they have received after they have subscribed, the status of that profile in the subscription will be pending, right? So you have sent them an email to confirm, but they never actually confirm the opt-in. So the double opt-in was never carried throughout thoroughly. So those are the different statuses that you can have in within a subscription.
Great. And I think that one thing to bring to take with you in this, a takeaway from the different statuses, is that, of course, whenever you get an opt-in, you should celebrate. That's another subscriber to your communication. But you should respect the opt-outs. The opt-outs, if sending to opted out profiles, that basically impacts your deliverability and your reach in the long term and hurts your kind of deliverability as a brand. So respect the opt-out to get most out of your communication to the ones that you have the opt-in to. So this is a quick example of what this could look like in terms of consents to different subscriptions. These are the same examples that you saw in the slides before. But on the left-hand side, we have 4 different profiles with different consents to the newsletter and webinar invitations. You have one profile that has an opted in. You have one profile that previously had opted in, but now have opted out. So you cannot send to that profile anymore. You have a profile that is pending opt-in, and just like Opri said, it's someone that is waiting confirmation on that opted in. So we cannot send to those either, even if they will hopefully become an opted in profile shortly. And then there might be profiles that doesn't have any relationship with your invitations, of course. You could have the unknown profiles are such, you don't know who to send to or who the profile is. They haven't given their consent. So that is also someone that you cannot send to. On the other hand, we can also have the situation where we split this into 2 subscriptions. And then you can have the same profile giving one consent to one subscription and revoking consent to another subscription, or even for that matter, hasn't given any type of consent or to that subscription. It could also be great in that sense. So this is the way, how consents relate to the subscriptions. It's a dynamic kind of setup in terms of who you can send to that is subscribing to your subscription. And it also means that the subscriptions can have more subscribers, and you can see who have subscribed to that subscription before, but they're still opted out, so you cannot send to that subscriber. So to dig into what thing you should consider when you define your subscriptions, this is a little bit the heart of the presentation, basically. So there are 4 things that we say that you should consider when you define the subscription. You should consider marketing ambition. So how much am I going to send? What are the different areas of communication, different type of communication that I want to send? This should be taken into consideration when you define how many subscriptions and what are those subscriptions you should have. The purpose and target is also the same thing. So what do I want to get out of this? Is it just information? Do I want to convert people into upselling new services to them, or just new sales in that sense? What is the purpose of the communication that is going to go out? That also relates to what is the value that the customer is going to get, of course, with this communication. So if there a value in terms of focusing on webinars or getting more deep dive information, etc., that's also something that you should consider when you define this. And the complexity of your setup. So how complex is your organization? How complex is your value to your customers in terms of brands, in terms of divisions, in terms of structure, basically. But one thing you should keep in mind and bring with you is to keep it as simple as possible, because simplicity brings the clarity. It brings clarity for your customers in terms of what to expect from the communication that they're signing up to, but it also brings clarity to you in how to manage and where to send and how to address the subscription and the customer base and the profiles that you're sending. So to give some examples, there are 3 ways to structure these subscriptions. We have one way where we say the capture all approach. You probably then also recognize this from the previous slides that we showed, that this is the simple way to do it. You have one folder, you have one campaign or one subscription that you gather everything, basically. This is where you keep it simple. The purpose here is to keep it simple, make sure that you can send any type of communication towards those customers or those profiles that are subscribing to that subscription. It makes it simpler to manage opt-ins and opt-outs related to that subscription and know who to send to and who not to send to. So it's a simple structure to use when you have a varying ambition of what to send as well. So the marketing ambition here could be a little bit lower, not lower in total, but not so specific in different areas, which means that you can send also webinar communication here. You can send the emails, you can send product updates, you can send whatever you want in this kind of setup. The second one is somewhat of a value approach, you could say. So here we split the different types of communication in this example. So we have webinars, newsletters, events, user activation flows or communications that we want to send. This is to be very direct in terms of what to expect, what our customers and what the profiles that we're addressing could expect from these communications. It also gives them the possibility to select what values am I interested of. I mean, more interested in joining the webinars, joining the Mastering Apsis series, for example, getting that information, than what I am of the newsletter. That is not, a core interest of mine. Then I can select not to subscribe to that, of course. So this is a very focused kind of where you have focus activities and you have a ambition in all of these different areas to do sendings. That is when you structure it in this kind of way. And then we have a little bit more on the complexity side. So this is where you need to combine the two other approaches to also make it very specific in terms of if you have different brands to communicate for, or divisions where you work that you want to do different type of marketings for, or you have different projects that you run that you want to kind of grouping into different types of communications regarding those different projects where you have different ambitions. So here the ambition is the value, the purpose, and the focus comes into, impacting the kind of setup with the complexity in that sense. So for this example, we have Apsis 1, which is one of our product. Apsis Pro is another one of our product, and Tribe is another one product of Apsis. So you could structure it within the product focus, and then we have a kind of a higher marketing ambition towards Apsis 1 than we have towards Apsis Pro. So we structure it a little bit differently and have a more focus there in what we do. Do you have anything to add here, Opri? Anything that I missed?
Yeah, maybe one thing. It's also about how consistently you send out emails, right? So if you look at the first and second example in here, if you are sending, let's say, one email per month or per quarter, then the first one is like a good way for you to communicate with your pool. However, when you start to expand on the subscription, you need to also start to think about how much content you are sending out, because you need to do it consistently so that the subscribers are actually expecting something from you. So if you send one newsletter for the per year, then you probably don't need a second option where you have 4 different subscriptions. You can just simply have the first option and then use segmentation to grab a specific part of that pool. Obviously, you can just use segmentation also on the other 2 examples in here, but I think it's good thing to remember when you are planning your structure is like, okay, how often we are sending out our emails. And I've seen a couple of use cases and business cases where we see that the engagement is actually growing when you send consistently, let's say every 2 weeks or every month and so. So you need to test a little bit and see the, as you said, the intention or the how much you want to send out. And when we look at the third one with the brand and division, it usually means already that you have more than one person actually working in the account, right? So usually the first and second one is where you have a smaller marketing team. So it could be you, only you working in it, or you have a couple of colleagues. But when you're looking at the third one, you probably have product marketing in, you have marketing team in, and you might have several different people managing different parts of the company. And therefore, the structure is also a little bit more complex.
And I think also one thing to push on there or to highlight more and say, I think you probably mentioned it a little bit, Apri, but in just that working in the first approach here also creates somewhat of a risk in that sense, because whatever profile that wants to opt out to all information, right, and all communication.
Yes.
So which means that you cannot contact that person or profile any longer. But working with the second approach, they have the opportunity to opt out to parts of it, which means that you can still nurture them and work with them in other subscriptions. So that's also something to keep in mind. So of course there's a number of pitfalls that you can run into. Here are 3 of them that you should probably try to avoid. So one of them is structuring by channel. So this basically creates an unnecessary complexity to your setup, because the channel part of it is supported already by the consent. The consent sets the profile says if they want to opt in through SMS or through email to that subscription specifically. So with the consent, this already works out itself. So don't structure it by channel. Don't have marketing through email or something like that as a subscription. That will create an unnecessary administration that just brings levels. The second one is being too detailed in your definition. So if you detail it, even if we have webinars as one area, you could be intrigued to go into defining it as mastering Apsis webinar series. But that means that those that gives the consent to that kind of communication, you will miss out to communicate to those if you have other intents, or if you have other webinar series that you want to communicate and start doing, or webinars on other topics. You're not allowed to send the communication to them because that's a separate subscription. So keep in mind not to detail it too much, because that limits you in a little bit the same kind of way as if you just group it in a one subscription and splitting it in several. But focus on the value. So what value on the higher level do I want to give up? And the same thing goes with tying it to time-bound activities, basically. So if you're a constructor or a construction company or something running large project or housing projects or whatever, if you structure subscriptions by specific projects, that would mean then that whenever that project is over, you stop communicating regarding that, you miss out on communicating to those profiles that have subscribed to that subscription. So instead, move up one level in granularity, subscribe to the project updates or whatever, and work with segmentations to find ways in terms of what they're interested of instead, because that means you can continue to communicate to them after the project is finalized. Some small tips and tricks there to make sure that you get the most out of your subscriptions. This is a quick walkthrough just of how you create your subscription. Just a little bit of reminder, if you're working with the default subscriptions that we have, you go to your audience tab in Apsis. You go to the subscription area in the audience tool. Here you see all your subscription folders listed. In each folder, you see the subscriptions that are part of it. If you want to create a new folder, a new structure, you hit the create button. Simple as that. You write the new kind of folder that you want to add to your structure. it gets added, and then towards that that folder, you of course create the subscription just by hitting the button at the top, selecting your folder, and then you just add the subscription that you want to do, and then you're good to go. It's available on all the tools that you need to work in, basically. So just hit create, and then there it is in the list. So moving on, before we head into the how you make sure that your segment grows, we touched a little bit upon, the subscription grows. We touched a little bit about segments, how to use segments, what you can do with them. A segment is basically a selection of profile, similar to a subscription in that sense, but it's independent of the subscription. So you can have segments that you can use for multiple subscriptions. It's based on the profile, its attributes, its tags, and the events that it creates, basically. So here you have a top-down approach of your data structure in terms of your account. Then account can have multiple sections in Apsis. That is different types of subscription, different types of setups, different types of communications. In here you have different folders. You saw that just now, that you can create different folders that have different subscriptions. So that is all good to their subscriptions. Now I have my structure. Now I want to communicate and I want to target specifically. Going back to the example of the construction company, this is where you then could use, for example, tags to show that, well, me, Daniel, I'm interested in the house on this address that we're now building. It's gonna move in the coming 6 months or something like that. Then I can do the segmentation of all of those that have created or shown interest in that building, but I can still send it to the subscription that is called housing projects or whatever that kind of subscription is called, right? But I only get the subset of profiles within that subscription that have shown the interest of that specific project. So that is how I can utilize a wider subscription to a specific segment that has specific interest. So how do you grow your subscription base, Apris?
Yeah, let's see. I might have a couple of examples. Let's start with the lead magnet first. So, and let's start why you should use lead magnets. The content solves a problem or gives insight for a specific area of interest for the prospect or lead or customer, whoever it is on the other side. People rarely leave their email addresses just for the sake of it. I guess everybody in here knows that. So it's a good idea to use different type of ways to gather new subscribers to your subscriptions. So here I have a couple of different examples. While you're building reach, so you have new users coming to your website, so you could use checklists, templates, quizzes, assessments, these type of things to try to gather, give something to the subscriber, but also at the same time having the possibility to communicate with them in the future. Usually when we're looking at a little bit further in the pipe, meaning that when they're moving in the funnel, we have qualified demand parts where we have webinars. We could use case studies, handbooks, industry reports to gather, and also to see, like, okay, if they are interested in our services, so what type of things we can do afterwards. So you can also gather the subscribers, but you can also do communication afterwards, or different type of activities to actually then convert them. And then on the convert side, we have pre-trials, book a demo, become a member, offers, coupons, whatever it is, depending on the area that you are, or business or membership or NGO where you are working. So what is your goal? So what do you actually want to achieve? But these are just a couple of different examples of lead magnets that you can use to actually gather new subscribers to your subscriptions. If we move to the next slide, Daniel.
How does this work, Apris? I mean, if you have, like, if you do checklist and lead magnet, well, how does this work technically? How do I make sure that the profile or the one that is visiting, and then make sure to, I mean, is added to my subscription in that sense? How do I set this up?
Yes. Great. We can use in Apsis 1, you can use forms. So if you move to the next slide. think I should have a form there. Yes.
Already
So you can
prepared, yeah.
create forms and pages. Yes. So you can either embed it on your website, meaning that they will show as you see in here, or you can also create simple landing pages in Apsis 1, meaning that if you want to do something which you don't want to put on your website for a reason or another, you can also create a landing page in Apsis 1. And while we create the form, in the form we can decide, okay, what type of subscription they should be added to, what type of data we want to gather in the form. And one of the things that you need to also remember in this part is, like, depending on what part of the flow they are, usually the less things you ask from the subscriber, the more likely it is that they're gonna fill out the form, right? So keep that in mind when you create the form, so you don't do like 50 questions if it's not necessary, of course. So in this example, we have the email benchmark report, which is one of my favorite reports, and we're going to release a new one next year. But also what we have done is that we, of course, link this to a marketing automation flow. So yes, you can add a subscriber into the subscription. You just need to remember that they are very engaged at that point. So you should utilize that. So Daniel, if you move to the next slide. There is just a simple video of how you can power up the forms with the automation. So you simply link the form that you have created in Apsis 1 to the listening node. And then after that, you can start to build the flow. And when we are looking at this, and then you're adding the emails and so forth, yes, you can just tell them thank you and send a link to the handbook. However, we are seeing usually 60 to 70% minimum open rates, so engagement on these emails. So it's a good time to think about also, okay, how do we capture this? How do we make sure that they are engaged? So if they have actually contacted us and they want to get this handbook, how do we communicate also on other things that we have and chain it? So utilize the opportunity, send something else out than just a thank you email, right? Because you know that they're going to open up the email. So it's a good idea to think about what else we can provide than just the handbook, or send the first email as a handbook at a timer and do a onboarding flow for them. Because again, yes, the open rates could decrease a little bit, but still, depending on, I've seen 80% open rates to 4 or 5 emails onboarding flows. So as long as the content is good and the client actually, or the customer, or the profile, whoever you want to call it, is receiving that email and it's the material that they want, you can actually get quite a lot out of the one subscriber with the good automation planning.
So what you mean here basically is that the conclusion of this is that you should continue to nurture that base that signs up to your subscription in working with these kinds of lead magnets and these kinds of things, because there's real engagement in those things. Even if we don't do the automation in that sense, continuous communication after that kind of sign up is one of the necessary things to leverage the engagement to a great extent.
Definitely. And also one thing, if you are a 1 or 2 people shop called, the subscriber doesn't know, even if you send newsletters for like 3 months directly out of the automation flow, because they don't know that you actually manually went in today and click the campaign and send it in. So you can actually just add some of the newsletters inside of the automation flow, just to making sure that when someone is subscribing to your newsletter, they're actually getting the newsletters, right? So if you are someone who is sending one for once per quarter or once per month, you can always send out 2 to 3 emails after they have signed up.
Good. Moving on, I think.
Yes, and then I'm going to try to do this in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Let's see if I can manage that, Daniel. So we also can add subscribers from different channels, and in here you meet clients where they are, right? Not everybody is going to be on your website, right? You are meeting them on-site events, exhibitions, whatever it is. And remember that the physical touch points in the customer journey are also a great way to capture new subscribers to your subscriptions, right? So you could potentially go to an exhibition. You could gather some email addresses from there if you get the consent, and then you could add them later on to your subscription, and potentially using the tag to send out an email to those people like, hey, it was great to meet you guys in the exhibition X, and if you want to continue the discussions with us, just book the time from here. But then we have other type of channels that we could utilize. So we have social media. I think social media, we have ERPs, we have different types of apps. And there are several different ways that you can connect to Apsis One and add subscribers. One of them is Zapier. So I have created here an example, for example, how to get LinkedIn leads automatically added to Apsis One without any coding. You just build the flow in SAP, and then you build the flow in Apsis One. Very easy and simple way to work and connect apps to your marketing account without actually needing to do any technical configuration. And then we can also add subscribers via scheduled import. So if you have, let's see, a ERP, CRM, any this type of a thing where you have clients or your membership data, whatever it is, and you don't want to do a lengthy or more a bigger project on adding contacts to Apsis, you could just easily use scheduled import, and then have automated data flowing in and utilize that data in the communication, also as an example in the marketing automation flows. And the last bit that we have is, oh, did you have any questions, Daniel? Sorry, I'm just
no.
I
just said great. Yeah.
Yes. And then we have the native integrations that you can use to map the get data from your external systems to Apsis One.
Exactly. So I think that was all. We did utilize a minute or so more. But let's see if there's any questions. I think
we have. So we have one question: is, are you planning on launching a preference center where subscribers can manage all of their subscriptions?
Now I think you're talking to the right person here, right? So yeah, we are. Yes. We have that on the roadmap to make sure to enable you guys as marketeers and managing your accounts to build different pages where the end users can manage their subscriptions. So it would also mean that you can select, okay, what subscriptions should actually be possible to manage in these pages, and you can expose them in different areas or different communication where you want as well. So we put it in the hands of you guys, and we'll do that, and the idea to do that during the coming year. It's part of the roadmap for 2026.
Yes, I think you and all of us are very excited for that feature.
Very much. Yeah.
There is another question. I can take this one. Is there an option to connect Typeform to Apsis? Previous, this was not an option. You can use Typeform, and Daniel, you can also add in later, but Typeform you can add with the Zapier. So Typeform has endpoints in Zapier, so you could add the contacts to Apsis via Zap.
We're also, to add on that, we're also working on a roadmap for integrations that is native to our platform and not only through Zapier. Typeform is on the list of candidates. I'm just gonna put it there. And if you have any other type of integrations that you would like to see towards Apsis platform that is more native, please just reach out to us in any kind of way, and we'll happy to discuss that.
Yeah. We have also another question in here, which is like maybe less relevant question for this topic, but I'll ask you anyway. Yes, please ask all the questions. What is the best practice for an auto reply? This email is no longer in use. Delete the subscription for that profile or leave it and let it bounce. I would say that you can leave it and let it bounce, because we have a built-in function which will, once we get like 3 hard bounces, we will block, so you will not be able to send emails to that email address anymore. So the platform itself is making sure that the list hygiene is being hi. If you want to learn more about that, you can go back to the first webinar that we did, because we touch upon on this one in there. And then what I would probably recommend is that if you are communicating with your customers, you might want to create an automation flow for the hard bounces, because it might be interesting for the sales team to know if a person who has been working in the company and is an important customer is leaving, or important contact in that company is leaving. You might want to check in who is the new person in there. So there are quite a few ways to work with it, but I think in this case you can leave it in, because after 3 bounce we are in any case going to block. You will not be able to send emails to that address. And then there is one last question, Daniel. Maybe you can take this one. It's what is implicit consent?
Yeah, so implicit consent, what we discussed a little bit in the presentation is mainly explicit consent. So that is, the explicit consent is when a profile gives you the approval or signs up to a communication through your website or something similar, right? What the implicit is that it's given to the consent is given based on that they have agreements with your company or have bought any products that is related to it. So if you're to send an update about a subscription or something, you can do that without asking for a new consent, or if you can have separate subscriptions for that. So if you have perhaps a customer list or key contacts or something on your customers, you can directly import that into Apsis to a specific subscription, which you can do those communications on. And so that's what implicit consent is. It's not given to them, it's not stated from the profile, but it's indirectly given through another agreement, basically.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. This was a lot of fun. If you have any questions, please reach out to your account manager or support or us through LinkedIn or via email, and we will take it from here. And please remember to subscribe to the other webinar series that we will have later on.
Yes, happy to see you all.
Wishing everybody a very nice weekend.
Yes, nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.